Okay, so I just hit the record button. So we're recording. This is September 9th when we're recording this, 2020. And we're doing this is a filmmaker interview with Janine Uyanga and Jake O'Connor, and we're talking about Justice Delayed, short film that they made for their senior year. This is their senior film at Cal State Long Beach, and it was a year, at least a year or longer in the making, and they had a great screening at the end of the year showcase at the Film and Electronic Arts Showcase, which was terrific. And also the film went on to the CSU Media Arts Festival, where it won tied for first place for short narrative, which was great. Terrific film. Hopefully, some people I maybe just watched it before coming to this discussion. But anyway, we want to just say thanks so much for Janine and Jake for joining us. We're really, really glad to have you guys with us.
Thanks for having us.
um, cool. Well, let's see. Maybe the first thing I had to do is have you guys just maybe you could just say your name so we can and say hello, just so we've got you on the recording and so everybody can see your faces. And then and then I don't know, I have a few questions for you too. So Janine, why don't we start with you?
Hi, I'm Janine. I'm the writer and director of Justice Delayed.
All right. I'll try to spotlight you guys and turn on your video if it doesn't automatically go. And then Jake.
Hello, I'm Jake, the DP of Justice Delayed.
And I'm Kent Hayward. I was the instructor for the class, for one of the classes, and it was a collaborative event. But the class I taught was with the directors and producers, and I teach. I'm an assistant professor at Cal State Long Beach. So, well, this is super exciting, and we're really, really glad to have you guys with us. And I have a bazillion questions for you guys, but I know that there may be some questions at the end as well. So people who are joining us who have some questions, know that we're going to give you some space for that to ask your questions at the end. But maybe I'll start with this then. For people probably saw the film before joining us right now, but if they didn't, Janine, could I put you on the spot here and ask to maybe say like a couple of sentences about what a description of the story?
Yeah. Okay. So, basically, when the younger brother of this man is shot by a white police officer, he is. I'm sorry, I'm getting like nervous. um,
That's all right.
like I
Oh,
feel like I haven't done like the pitch in like a long time, but when his younger brother is shot by a white police officer, a black man breaks into the home of the police officer trying to get justice.
yeah, yeah. Cool. And I think, oh, you know what? Maybe um, I'm going to try to share the screen and put your log line up here, and I'll read your log line if I can, because I don't think I can remember it off the top of my head. So I'll go here, I'll press this button, I'll press this button, and I'll go share screen. And then I need to go over here. So here's your log line that you wrote 2+ years ago now. When his 12-year-old brother is shot by a white police officer, a young black man decides to take matters into his own hands, but finds himself torn between vengeance and justice. There's a log line. Nice. Cool, cool. So yeah, I have a little sort of activity sheet that I made for this discussion as well, but just to give a little context, we're talking about this film was shot 2 years ago, so it's before George Floyd was killed by police, but certainly not. Certainly after many other people have been killed by police. This story is about a young boy who's shot by a police officer. I remember at the time describing it as like a Trayvon Martin kind of a story. Maybe that's not the best, most accurate description, but I guess I wanted to start there since we're talking a lot about Black Lives Matter at this time that we're recording this in September 9th, 2020. And we're talking about anti-racism and a lot of things a lot of discussions are happening in the present. Is there, so Janine, I guess this is a question for you. Would you say that, did you make this film to, as a social commentary, as an activist kind of a film, or what was your intent when you made the film?
Um, it wasn't like my intention to like make like a social justice like film. But this story has like been with me for a little while, and I just felt like it has such an original take on like on striving for justice. It's a definitely something that's not what most people would do, what our main character Jay does. And I feel like I kind of like would think of it as like a fantasy in a way, because that's not something that I personally would end up doing or the next person. Um, so yeah, I'd like to try and see if it would be like a fantasy film and not like a social justice, but yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and that, I want to get back to some of the specifics of what you're getting at there in a little bit. Uh, that's interesting. Um, is it? I'm also curious. Is it a when you're putting it together? You put it together here at Cal State Long Beach on our campus, and it's our our campus has got a lot of great stories. So the student population is pretty diverse. Your teacher, your professor, me, white, cisgender, relatively privileged professor guy. Um, did you find and our department and really most of the film industry is pretty white and pretty male. I mean, did you find any challenges like that about that kind of thing when you were putting it together or thinking about it or getting the material together?
Like I said, like the story has been with me for kind of a while. It was originally a play written by my best friend back in like 2016, and we had like workshopped it at our community college at the time. And ever since I read it, I immediately saw it as something to be on screen. And so I was kind of like spearheading it, and like this was definitely something that I wanted to make. I never thought of like what other people would think. And it wasn't too hard to make it in our department, though I was like concerned that like that it wouldn't get picked for like the violence that would be like that is in the film. So that was like my only concern. But other than that, I was very confident in it.
Hmm. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, and so for you, it was like uh, it's like you say, it's a story that was with you for a long time. It wasn't really a question about like the specific subject matter or the specific agenda. You were just like, hey, this is a story, and it's a story um, that I know and is important to me, and you were making it for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like if you don't have like that type of personal connection to something that you're making, and there's no point in doing it. And so it had if I was going to put all this time and effort and basically a year out of my life making something, I wanted it to be something that I completely stood behind. So yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, what a great way to make a film and great reasons to is for yourself and because you have a personal connection to it. And I think a lot of people forget that because if you don't conceivably, you could be making, if you have an agenda, maybe you could end up with a film that feels like it's not made for personal reasons, but it's doesn't feel authentic, maybe because it has an agenda.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case with this film at all. Um, let's see. I want to, maybe we can maybe bring Jake in on this next couple of questions here. But in terms of the artistic like look and feel of the film, it's a different it looks different from a lot of the other films that year, and it looks unique. What did you guys, maybe I'll start with you, Janine, and then we can go to Jake. What kind of things did you think about in terms of like how you wanted it to look, and what was your process for thinking about how you're going to tell the story visually?
So my biggest inspiration, and most people know, is Moonlight, and I absolutely love that film. It's something that I watch constantly whenever I need inspiration. So I um, got a lot of inspiration from that film. But also, Jake and I would constantly be sending each other like screenshots of like or like stills of other short films, and sending each other short films on like Vimeo and music videos and photography, and just finding anything around us, any art around us that like inspired us and made us think about the film. We were exchanging that constantly.
Cool, cool. And yeah, Jake, what were you? So you're the cinematographer again. So
Yeah.
what?
Basically, um, how we came up with the look kind of started early on in pre-production. We were fortunate enough that all of the department heads were able to attend a panel on, it was called Politics, Art, and Rebellion. And I forget the name of the speakers that were there. I should have written it down. I didn't, because I thought I'd remember, and then I didn't remember.
One of the speakers was Rafael Castile or Cassell or something. He was in Blind Spotting.
Yes.
Yes.
And going to a talk like that with all the department heads and all the creatives, and just kind of trying to talk and decide like what was the goal of what we were trying to make, and like why are we telling the story. And from early, like whether we wanted to take it and like, we didn't want it to be a movie where we were just preaching to the same people who already believe in like the same kind of ideals that we believe in, and just it not doing it as much. We debated whether we wanted to make it something that like swings like people who are on the fence about like or people who don't see this type of story. And so early on, we had kind of decided that we wanted to make this as real as possible. And Janine and I both, we have a history of working together. We were like, our first movie ever made was with each other. And so we have a very similar style in going for like stylized social realism. Like that's kind of our, Moonlight's a big, you know, um, visual kind of representation of that, as are many other movies. And so with this movie, it was, it didn't feel like, it felt like we needed to do something different. We needed to make it look very different, and kind of try something that we hadn't before. And so I think we decided early that we wanted to kind of not make this movie look pretty at all. We kind of wanted it to make it look rough on the edges, and, be as real as possible, and not get so distracted in making it look like a movie. I feel like a lot of directors and TPs want it to look, very stylized and very fluffy and, like a movie. And that was never, that felt like the exact opposite of the direction that we wanted to take it. So I think keeping that kind of idea in our heads the whole time, we were able to, like Janine said, just go through so much photography and films and music videos, and just pull, stills that made us feel that, like, kind of that realistic, like gut punch, of like a visual style. Yeah, and that's kind of how
Cool.
we got there.
Cool. Let me ask you some more about that, because I think a lot of the people in our who are going to be watching this either as a recording or maybe right now are in some of our intro classes. They're thinking about like, okay, I want to make a 10-minute project. I want to do a senior project. What am I going to do? Maybe they've written something, but but you know, and have made some projects of their own. You guys were. You said that you've worked together a little bit before you made this project. But what is maybe we can talk about that collaboration a little bit, and what what how did that work? I mean, this isn't Universal Pictures or whatever, and so we don't have that like rigid structure of a studio system. But you're two people making a movie together, and collaboration can sometimes is a learned skill. So maybe talk about that a little bit if you could. Like, how did you collaborate, or how did you talk to each other? And I don't know if Janine, if you want to start.
Yeah. So Jake and I both transferred into Long Beach at the same time, and I definitely had my mindset like I'm coming here. I'm coming into film school to make stuff. Like I just spent 2 years out of community college, not like really touching film like that much, and like not getting to be creative. So that was like my main goal coming into this, and we both had the same cinematography class. And I remember when we started becoming friends, I was like, hey, I know somebody who wants like a music video. Like we should just do it. And like we kind of like got a group of us to create, and we've made like 2 music videos for that person, and we've done another short film together outside of school. And those were those were big moments with us like learning like what we're even doing, trying to implement stuff that we're learning in class like on set, and like we didn't know what we were doing, but we were going to try and make it happen, and it really just starts there. It really gave us the confidence to like hone in on like what we want our craft to look like. And I'm really happy and glad that we were able to do that for like a year before doing Justice Delayed, because I feel like you can see that our collaboration in this project really worked well because of our past together.
Jake, does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. I had the same exact mindset going into Long Beach, coming out of 2 years of not doing a production class, not really doing anything creative. And so when we met, it just kind of clicked, like, we want to make as much as we can and do as much as we can. And like, that's why we're here. And because of that, we were able to practice bouncing ideas off each other and disagreeing with each other, and, testing like what the other person likes, what we like, and learning about ourselves in the process. And it was just a really good, honest, collaborative, effort. That movie definitely wouldn't be what it is without like us, making tons of mistakes on, our side projects, and, just learning like what it takes to get things made.
I'm really glad you said that, because I think like mistakes are really important, and it's something that's like culturally really hard to I don't know, talk about, or to talk about with students, or to talk about with anybody really. Like, hey, how do you learn? How do you grow as a person? Well, you make mistakes. I have a 10-year-old son who, I'm at home with, this is COVID. He'll probably barge in here any minute now to ask me how to do something on his iPad or something for his 5th grade class. But we all have, but yeah, so I'm always telling him, like, it's okay if you didn't get that right, or if that drawing doesn't look, perfect. Like, that's how we learn. We make mistakes, and we learn. I do it all the time. I make a ton of mistakes. So I think that's really great that you are able to think about it that way. And being in school is a great place to make those mistakes, to do that trial and error. But speaking of, I don't know, I don't want to say speaking of mistakes, but I guess I just did. Did you guys have what's like is there a memorable mistake, or any like highlights or lowlights from the project that you want to share with us? Maybe Janine, you want to?
Like on set, or just like everything?
Anything, yeah, anything you want.
I'd say a highlight on set was me realizing that like we did most like everything we needed to do in pre-production. Whenever I've been on set before, I have not been able to sleep the night before. I'm constantly like trying to do like last minute things, or I can't even eat. Like I literally don't eat at all like that entire day. And when we
That's
were
not healthy.
I know it's not healthy at all. But when we were on the set for Justice Delayed, I literally would be able to sit down and eat like in between takes, or like I was just like, whoa, like everybody knows what they're doing, and it literally blew me away because we were so prepared, like not like so prepared, but we knew what we were doing, and there was no question, and I completely trusted my crew. And that like from um, doing a lot of stuff on the side where it's all hands on deck and everybody's doing everything, like being able to see like all the departments like like put everything and all their effort into like their part. It was really special to see that happen. That was like one of my favorites.
Cool. So yeah, people knowing their roles, people and having done all that pre-production, done all your planning, done your experimenting, done your mistakes, um, uh, and all the prep really helped you. Okay, so that was a highlight. Um, yeah. Oh, that's great. What about you, Jake? A highlight from you? Man, I want to hear lowlights too.
Definitely, I would have to say my highlight is also pre-production, but pre-production specifically, I feel like since Justice Delayed, any project that I work on, I'm trying to recreate the thoroughness of our pre-production from Justice Delayed. Um, because we just spent hours workshopping the script and talking about it and, debating, how we wanted to approach it, with multiple crew members and department heads. And then, for like an entire day, Janine and I sat in my living room and blocked and shot listed the entire movie. And like we got chairs to like resemble the car and figured out how we wanted to position cameras. And we did like we taped it. We did everything. And it was just so thorough and precise because we wanted it to be, as best as possible. We want to do the best job we could. We were just all so invested. And we also decided early on that like getting our actors back, getting camera back, getting our locations back for like pickups if we needed it was going to be completely impossible. So because of that, we spent so much more time making sure that we would have everything right so that we didn't, we got everything on the day of, which was a challenge, I think, and pretty interesting that we actually pulled it off.
That's great. And I had forgotten that part that that you guys didn't do a pickup day. A lot of people, a lot of these projects shoot for 3 days, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they have months and months and months later, we can schedule a pickup date, meaning like any extra shots that we discover we need or coverage or whatever we can get that day. But you guys took the 3 days and had a child actor, which requires a lot of other special things. But that's interesting it's interesting to me that that you decided you were going to give yourself those restrictions, and that really helped you out, knowing that you weren't going to come back, or you weren't going to be able to come back.
Absolutely.
Huh, cool. Wow. All right. Well, what another memory, Janine? Maybe a less happy one, or you don't have?
A less happy memory. I would say that having to rewrite the script for sure was pretty challenging, because like I said, my best friend had written this as a play, and it was like a 60-page play. Trying to get that into a 10-minute like film was very, very challenging, having to cut out a lot of things, and having that discussion with someone with like when it's their baby is very hard. But like at the same time, like I'm trying to make something that's just as meaningful to me. So that was a very challenging time, but it worked out in the end. And on set, we did have notoriously we had like a problem where one of our actors got accidentally hit in the head by our prop gun, which was not expected. And but I think we all handled it correctly. He was a trooper. We did all the right precautions. And yeah, it was just very shocking because we'd never, out of all the other things that we tried to plan for, that was something that we weren't. And I remember, I think Abby was calling you, and like our producers were calling you, trying to like make sure to see like what should we do. But yeah, everything was good in the end. He was completely fine. But yeah, and I want to like turn it into like a little like highlight as well. Like my producers like definitely like did their job to help me and Jake like be in our like zone, you know, like they didn't do anything to make us like freak out. Like I found out after we had shot that the police had been called or something, like a neighbor complained, like had a noise complaint, and I didn't even know until like after like we did our post-mortem or whatever basically. And it just made me think like, wow, like my producers really cared about me, because if they told me that during like that, I would have like freaked out and I would have been completely distracted from directing this film, you know. And I really appreciate that. Like Adam and Michael were awesome.
They did a great job. They really did. And I remember when they called me about that specific injury, and they were totally calm. And I think you know, the whole team handled that and everything else very, very professionally. And I think that's a testament to your planning and also to, you know, your approach and the professionalism. I mean, yeah, I got the call like, oh, our actor got hit on the head. Oh, really? What? Oh no, what happened? Is he okay? With a prop gun? What? You know,
Yeah, I
that
felt
could have. It sounded terrible, but
yeah.
really, it was like it could have been anything. It could have been. I remember talking with Adam, like, okay, oh, I see. What? Okay, tell me what happened. Oh, the guy was pulling a prop out of his backpack, and it was fine on the first take. And the second take, it bumped him in the head. Okay, it could have been anything. It could have been a book. So, okay, it's not necessarily anything to do with this particular prop, but it just sounded scary. And
Mm-hmm.
as it turned out, it was just a Band-Aid and a ice pack kind of a situation. But you guys really were professional about it and took the actor to urgent care just in case, which was totally unnecessary, but good to look out for your people. So yeah, you guys, that was terrific. I think that you're right. It's maybe a low, I don't know if it's a low light, but it's a negative turned into a positive. So yeah, well done. But okay, cool. Yeah, anything, and Jake, any other ones from you, stories of, I don't know, maybe learning stories or
Yeah. I mean, regardless of how great our pre-production was, shit always happens. And day one, we were trying to shoot all of the car and exterior stuff at the park. And, you know, we had planned everything. We had gotten police to like block off the roads, and we had, you know, done everything super safe and made sure that like it was all handled. And across on the other side of the park is tree trimmers are going for like hours. And so we could not get clean audio, and we were just burning daylight, and we were just so flustered. And that turned into a learning experience. And similar things happened, you know, on days 2 and 3 where we got flustered, and, you know, we had planned so rigidly for, you know, to shoot this scene before this scene, and, you know, vice versa. And just stuff happens, and you just have to adjust. You have to be flexible, and you can't get caught up in the, well, we wanted it this way kind of deal. And you just got to, you know, be able to think on your feet and be able to, you know, adjust for the sake of, you know, the project. And that was definitely, Justice Late, I feel like I learned that the most on that project than anything, is to be flexible.
Yeah.
that's great. Right, like have a plan and stick to it, but then yeah, be flexible for those things that just
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Um, let's see. I have a couple more questions, but I also want to let anybody else who's watching with us ask some questions. I know that some people, I asked my students from introduction to production to watch this recorded video, and so I'll ask a question for them, and which is, you know, they and other people who are watching this video are maybe beginning their production journey, and maybe are first years or sophomores. Think about if you could imagine yourselves back in those days. Is there something that you wish somebody who is in your position now would have told a young you? Any advice for younger filmmakers?
Um, I'd say like just do it. Like exactly what Jake and I did. Like we wanted to make stuff and we did it and we learned so much from it. If you're like sitting and constantly thinking like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this, but like I'm not ready, or like you'll never be ready if you continue that mindset. Like you have to allow yourself to be able to make mistakes. And also I would tell my younger self that like not to not to be so focused on one position within like filmmaking. Like me wanting to be a director, like I shouldn't only like look in like try and focus on that. Like there's so many other aspects to filmmaking that are just as important, and they all serve the same purpose in creating something. And yeah, that's what
Hmm.
I
So just if you decided that this project you're not going to be a director, you're going to be a production designer, that doesn't mean you can never be a director. You're not closing your doors to anything. You're doing something else. It's additive.
And it helps you for like your own, like if I was like a production designer on something, I have that experience. I know how to communicate to a production designer for a project that I want to do like later on, you know. Being well-rounded for sure is something that I feel like Long Beach teaches our the film students to do. And yeah.
Oh, cool. Huh. Jake, what about for you? Some
Yeah. So as I mentioned, pre-production, 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 um, as well as being flexible, but also one thing that David Waldman taught me early on was make movies with people that you want to be with and hang out with, and like, people that you want to sit down and have dinner with, and just I felt like that was the biggest thing for me in school, was just surrounding myself with people that I liked being around and I shared interest with, and people that I felt comfortable in the creative process with, because you are vulnerable in a way, and being in a comfortable environment is just so important to nurturing that kind of creative side of you. So I felt like that was huge for me to like hear from him and then practice on my own, and I felt like it worked out.
That's great. Yeah, that is really good. That's good advice. Because yeah, you don't always get that when you're working those freelance projects. That person you hired you, or the person who's in charge, isn't necessarily somebody you want to like, yeah, sit down and have a meal with, share an acai bowl or whatever. um, okay. Cool. Cool. Um, yeah. I don't know. Any other bits of advice? I don't want to put you on the spot for another one, but
um
if they come up, you can feel free to share them.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, but that's great. Well, in a way that you've kind of gone into one of my last questions here, which is since we're talking about the Long Beach campus, and you guys made this for Cal State Long Beach and the Film and Electronic Arts Department. Yeah, is there anything like specific, or I don't know? Can you say anything about your experience in the Film and Electronic Arts Department, or your experience at Long Beach? Something particularly that you liked or didn't like, or worked for you, or
I feel like my experience at Long Beach has really like pushed me so hard to be the artist that I am. Although it's like I'm pushing myself just as hard. But I feel like I got some I faced some challenges that made me work harder. I don't know. I remember my 336 in junior year. Like I had I wanted to shoot in a bathroom and I couldn't find like a bathroom that was big enough to do the shots that I wanted. And I remember telling Neil that like I'm gonna go in the lighting studio and build a bathroom myself. Like I'm gonna do that. And he was like, no, just find a bathroom. Like you can find a bathroom. Why would you want it? And I was like, no, I can do it. Like I already like set it in my head. I was like, we have so many flats. I can get wallpaper. I could do all this stuff. Like I can do it. And I did it. And I remember the day that he showed up, he was like, and like those were like moments where like I I don't know, I pushed myself just because I knew I could execute it, and I didn't allow anyone else to tell me anything. And yeah, I don't know, I don't want to say that like the school like restricted me in any way, but like just like sometimes you need that like in order to break free and like do what you can. I
Yeah.
definitely was nervous about like submitting Justice Delayed to the panel, like to when we pitched it, because I didn't think that it was going to get chosen because of like certain rules that are in our handbook and like all of that. Like but then I just did it anyway because I believed in it. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's specifically the rule about prop weapons being
yeah,
tricky. People get real nervous about that. But I think you demonstrated in your presentation that that you'd thought about all that stuff and had a plan to be safe. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, because it is different. You're right. This is Cal State Long Beach, and it's different than you know USC or NYU or Cal Arts or something. Um, it's a different environment. In some ways, we don't have well, nobody has extra piles of money that they don't know what to do with, but being limited maybe opened up some creativity for you, perhaps.
yeah.
That's
And like
cool.
I said earlier, like I feel like Long Beach helps their film students become a little bit more well-rounded. I remember like my first year, I like went to USC to like watch one of their like showcases, and like yeah, everything was really pretty. But I remember hearing some of like the director, the producer, and the DP would come up and talk, and I remember hearing like some directors be like, oh, like thank you, Jake, I don't know anything about cameras and you really helped me out and blah 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 and execute this and all of that. And I'm like, you don't know how cameras work. Like I'm really grateful that all of the film students are taking the same classes up until um, our senior year when we're specializing in what we want to do, because yeah, like I can't imagine like only knowing just directing, because that can be great, but also can be a setback at the same time. So I'm grateful for Long Beach.
uh, Thanks. I just for the record, I'm not setting you guys up to say only nice things. You can say whatever you want, but but that's great to hear. What about you, Jake? Any
Yeah, I liked what you talked about with like, our resources. Like I felt like Long Beach is a small kind of tight-knit community, and it felt like what I loved about it was just how down everyone was to, work on each other's projects. I didn't feel like there was any big egos, while I was in school and even after school, I like would volunteer at other, other film schools that had more money and more resources, and just to see what like those productions were like and watch those films. And like Janine said, yeah, they're pretty, but there was a lot of, not everyone was as just close as we were and collaborative. And I felt like the environment that was created at Long Beach was really good for me. In a way, I felt like we were kind of underdogs, and we were taught how like the important things to make our movies. We weren't taught fluff. We weren't taught, how to make our movies shine. In a way, we were taught like the actual meat of what we needed and how to get things done with as little resources as we had, or as little resources as possible, so that when we do get out of school and we don't have any resources to make our films, we're not, we're not like a deer in headlights. We know we're comfortable in this kind of environment, and that was something that coming out of school, I felt so much more comfortable with because of Long Beach.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Well, speaking of coming out of school, and you guys have both been graduated now for about 2 years. That seems amazing.
Year and
Wow,
2 months.
incredible. Um, So are you, maybe this is my last question for you, but do you have advice for, people who are going to be graduating soon? You're doing freelance projects and stuff. The quote unquote real world. Yeah, I don't know, the thoughts about that for other people. And I mean, we're obviously now in COVID times too, and that's different. You could maybe talk about that too if you want. But also, yeah, what are some of the challenges as being a, a new face in the real world or in the industry? Janine, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, I remember specifically like my senior, like spring semester senior year. I was so terrified of like the thought of leaving was so scary. I just could not like grasp it. Like I did not see anything past film school. And I remember meeting with a lot of my professors and honestly crying to them, like saying like I don't know what I'm gonna do, like all of that. But like I said before, um, seeing like branching out of like what you want to do and going to different departments is definitely something that you should be open to, because personally, like if I was like, oh, I will only like PA for like big sets, or like I will only like want to do like an assistant directing thing, like I would have never like gone to like what I'm in right now. And I'll speak on it a little bit. I was a costume PA, so I moved into the costume department for a few projects, and through that, I actually worked on Regina King's first feature film, and we shot it last year, and it actually just got into the Venice Film Festival this week.
Woo, woo, woo.
And yeah, and through that, like I was able to learn so much just through costumes. Costumes are a big deal. I was working with someone who has been in this industry for like 50 years. She is an amazing costume designer, and like you can tell stories through that. And me being able to see that and learn from her has been such a big thing for me. And if I was like, no, I'm not a costumer and I'm only a director, I would have never had that experience. And ultimately, I ended up getting my current internship at Regina's production company through working with in the costume department. And I would have never gotten that if I was just a director, you know?
True. Yeah. Good point. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Jake? Thoughts,
Um,
advice, post
yeah,
college?
post college, man. Um, it was very like I had a very similar experience to Janine, where I didn't think about life after film school. Like my entire high school and like early education was just getting me to college, and then once I got to college, I tried to do as much as I could, and then I never actually thought about after college. So I was very terrified, and it was definitely like a scary experience, and it was a lot of like growing pains, I would say, like after college in a way. But one big thing of advice is like, as much as Long Beach taught me, like it taught me so much, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without it. Going into the real world, going on sets and like freelancing, I can't, like, I don't know everything. There's so much that I still didn't know, and having like an attitude of like I know what I'm doing, blah, 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 and like I know everything is just not true. There's so much that beyond what's taught, in lecture, that I had never experienced. And so I think being flexible and being humble and like understand, excuse me,
Yeah.
understanding that like you still are on your journey. Ending college was just the first step in your film career. It's not like I'm ready to be a filmmaker at that point. It's I'm ready to start becoming a filmmaker at that point. That's kind of what it felt like. And yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. Um, yeah, it's a strange transition. I mean, I remember that time in my life too. So many years ago now, as I'm an old man, but doing like PAing and stuff, and like, yeah, you know, well, I went to art school and I was like, I don't know, whatever. It was a whole different story for me, but anyway, that's great. Yeah. So, well, good. I'm glad. I think you were just starting to say, or maybe you said both of these things. It's a phrase that we hear in the department a lot, like the ability to be humble and be nimble. And that's something that Professor Waldman says a lot. I think those are really good words too. So that's
Absolutely.
interesting that you mentioned that. Cool. Let's see. Well, do we have any questions from the audience, and audience members here can just either, you can either raise your hand if with the little blue raise your hand button if you want, or you can put it into the chat window, or you can just unmute yourself and ask. But do you have? I've always got more questions, but if you guys have any questions, um, yeah, anything from the group? Oh, Diana writes in the chat window. She says, how did you find opportunities to get internships and jobs when you were just starting out? Good question.
Well, a lot of the jobs that like PA jobs that I got were actually like by word of mouth. Having your friend, like friends that are also filmmakers and working in the industry, are definitely they have a key role in helping you get jobs too. So a lot of the things that I did were just word of mouth. I never submitted to like anything. I've never like signed up for anything, and it was just by chance. But I definitely allowed myself to still, like, you don't have to take every single job that is offered to you as well. Like, I remember Abby, who was also in our class. She was working on Brooklyn Nine-Nine at the time, and she was sending a lot of stuff my way, a lot of office PA jobs my way. And at the time, I was still kind of like, I was still working like a normal job, and like I would love to like do that, but it didn't feel right for me. Like I wanted to like work for a company that like had every single that checked every box and that stood for everything that I stand for. And I waited, and I waited, and I ended up getting an internship for a company that checked all my boxes. It's a company run by 4 Black women, like, and it's just everything I've ever wanted. And so I feel like sometimes it's just like in due time, like you'll get your stuff, you'll get rewarded. And yeah.
What about Jake? Did you have anything about that? How did you find your
Um,
opportunities?
yeah, so like I didn't do any internships or anything like that. I just wanted, I think I kind of figured out early on that I only wanted to be on set. I just wanted to be, there shooting. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be at a different place every day. I didn't felt, the office PA kind of lifestyle just didn't feel like that was for me. And so I just started volunteering on sets on, Chapman and, Long Beach sets, other people, trying to meet as many students and people as I could. And then, after graduation, they do get a paid gig, and they called me, and then I meet, friends on that set. And then you network, and then those people call you. And it just like slowly over the past year has kind of branched out, where you have like a certain number of people who regularly come to you and hire you. But it really just starts with like finding people that you want to make projects with, kind of networking, meeting people, and just trying to get your name out there. Freelancing has been very strange, and like, it's not like I'm online applying to movies. It's all word of mouth. I'm only getting calls from like people who I have relationships with, or as recommendations from other people. And it just slowly builds over time. And that was something that I didn't realize at first. I thought like, I graduate and then I'm going to be working, and I didn't realize how slow that process can be. And it's very easy to like tie your self-worth to how much you're working and how productive you're being. And like, I'm talking about pre-COVID, and so I felt like a big learning experience was like understanding that in the path that I am and like freelancing and trying to be on set, it will take a lot of time and effort to kind of get to a place where I feel like I'm comfortable, I guess.
Hmm. Oh, that's interesting. And so for you, I think that's interesting that you both said like networking has been really, really important for you. And so would you say that for students who are, looking towards their graduation, um, that like having connections with their peers, their classmates, or people from who graduated last year, whatever, like, is that the network that you're talking about? Is that the kind of,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. But like also genuine connections, not just making these like friendships because you know that you can get something out of them. Like what Jake said, like people want to work with people that they can chill with, that they can have sit down and have dinner with. Like if you're kind and you're likable, like, and you're easy to be around, like that's what everyone wants, because people spend so much time making movies. Like we spend an X amount of hours with each other, and you want to be around people that you're comfortable with. So, yeah, genuine connections.
that's great advice. Yeah, good. Um, okay. I see another question from Shannon says, now that you've graduated, what are your sources of inspiration in your work? So sources of inspiration. Imagine some of them are the same or some of them are similar, but yeah, now that you've graduated, sources of inspiration. Janine?
I'd I'd say that just the life that you're living, the life around you, is already a big inspiration. Um, the whole write what you know is very it sounds very like cliche, and you always hear it, but like it's truly like the very important, because you have to, again, you're spending X amount of time doing, like, writing a script or in production and pre-production and all that stuff. You have to be, you have to do something that you truly love. And I definitely just grab inspiration from my friends, like funny things that they say, or if I'm on a walk and seeing like the way that the light hits like this building and there's like a shadow from this tree, like I like I absorb everything around me. And just also watching movies, like, and not being anal about it. I felt like there was a moment where I was like, I need to watch every single movie that is like that's good, you know? And it can be very exhausting, and just coming into something, or even just watching something that you truly love. If you can watch it over and over again, just seeing it for the aspect, like the film aspects, like sometimes like writing down like, oh, like in this scene, like this person does this or whatever, like kind of doing like those exercises, but like for films that you actually love, and seeing like how they were able to execute a storyline is pretty fun, I'd say. Yeah.
That's cool. So you're, in a way, you're taking some of the, I don't know, things maybe that you did in school for Citizen Kane or some movie that you had to watch and maybe felt like you didn't love, but not to single out Citizen Kane, but to do it with stuff that you really that you like for different reasons.
I
That's
I've
cool.
definitely, like I said, Moonlight is my movie, and I had Jake watch it multiple times when we were like in pre-production, and recently I just watched it again because I like was trying to get inspiration for something. And yeah, it's just going back to the stuff that makes you feel good, and reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing is like the biggest thing.
Nice, nice. Anything you want to add to that, Jake, or other
Yeah,
thoughts?
I feel like Jenny and I were kind of talking about this last night, where when we were in school, it was very easy for us to just like put our heads in the mud and just only focus on being filmmakers and trying to be like the best filmmakers we can and learn as much as we could. And now outside of school, it's kind of, we've had time to kind of focus on just like living lives and not just being that, you know, not trying to become a filmmaker, and just taking inspiration from being with friends and like, you know, living life and like looking at things other than movies. Like I feel like I'm watching less movies now, which isn't a bad thing because I'm now focusing more on like illustrators that I like and cartoonists that I like and painters and and music. And I feel like the best, to become like a well-rounded filmmaker, like pulling from all kinds of art instead of just film is super important. And I feel like that's kind of something, the journey that I've been on, I guess, post-graduation, is finding what I like outside of film.
That's great. That's great. Oh, good. And oh, Sarah has a question. Oh, I'm glad you're bringing this up. I was trying to ask something similar. Yeah, Sarah asks, how has the meaning and impact of this film changed or developed you, if so, among the current climate of advocacy for racial and social justice? Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts about that and how the current discussion, is connected with all these things we're talking about? I don't know, Janine, are you?
Yeah, I feel like I've this is probably something that like you wouldn't expect, but like with like the current climate, like I feel like I'm kind of like not over it, but like I'm good with like the social justice movies. And I personally, I had like plans to like develop Justice Delayed into something bigger. And like in a post George Floyd world, I kind of really just shelved it. I was like, I don't know if I want that anymore. Like, I don't know if I want to see injustices. Like, although like we see it enough on the news and we see it and like everywhere on social media. So um, I'd like to kind of like break away from that, because Black people are way more like we're way more complex than that. I'm more than just a social justice filmmaker. There's other aspects to that that I'd like to bring to the table. So that's something that I just kind of experienced and like went through in my own head recently.
Oh, that's really interesting. So you feel like you said what you needed to say, and the story came from you. You were maybe having the conversation before some other, or maybe other people are catching up to the conversation that you had already had, and other people are talking now, and you had your turn. Is it that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like this is not something that's been like said like for the last decade. It's been more than that. It's for hundreds of years. This is something that's not new, especially for Black people. And it's great that people are catching up, but I don't want that to be the only thing that we're seen as. And I'm noticing it as well. Like even in The Office, like executives, that's also something that they don't want to have another police brutality movie. They don't want to have another, like they're also over it, like so i I feel like it's important to have the films that we do have, and to learn from them, but we're just as complex as other people, so yeah.
That's great. That's great. I think that's really important. Um, well said. Wow. I don't know, Jake, anything related to that, or
Um,
some, on that vein you want to check in
yeah,
about?
I would say, like specifically to the question, like the meaning is definitely, or the impact of the film has definitely changed for me over time. I think at the beginning, there was this idea of it being like this social justice movie and like having like political influence. At least that was in the conversation at the time. But the longer like I sit with the movie and like what we made, the more I go back to it being more about the big brother relationship between Jay and Davy. And for me, and that's kind of where, my gut always goes to with that movie, and my own, me being a big brother, and like my own guilt of like, not being the best big brother I could be, for my own little brother. And that relationship, that is what sticks with me the most from that movie as time goes on. Because like Jay doesn't get justice in the end, you know, like it really isn't that much about the justice as it is about Jay's, you know, experience, the human experience of like what he's going through, guilt and grief and um, his entire psychology. Like it's, for me, the more time that goes on, the more I gravitate towards that and learning about that and revisiting it in that perspective.
Hmm. Oh, that's great. So yeah, for you're bringing it back to story, which is really we're why we're all here, why we all make movies is story, and that's why maybe the movie feels so successful and impactful is that it feels authentic, and that goes to story. That's
Absolutely.
terrific. Oh wow, that's great. There are I don't we're sort of near the end of our time, although we have kind of a loose amount of time here. If I want to, if there are more questions that people want to ask, we can let them ask. Uh, there's either by chat or just by shouting them out or raising your hand. Um, but uh, uh, but I want to say that it's really been great to hear you guys talk about your experience, and it's really been fabulous to have you share your reflections both on the school and on the project, and also on these important topics of anti-racism and social justice and racial justice at this time in particular. Um, but yeah, so I want to thank you guys for agreeing to come kind of through this together and pretty quickly. And so glad that you were able to be a part of this. Yeah, congrats to you guys and thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I'm not gonna lie, I was very nervous about it because I feel like I haven't spoke about the film too much. So this was very fun, and being able to reconnect with Jake too. And we haven't spoken so long, so it was really good.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah. Well, it was really it was my pleasure too. I love talking with you guys, and you guys were both particularly passionate and talented, and it was great to check in with you guys again too. I'm glad to see that you're doing well. Good luck out there, and stay in touch with us. Come back again, and we'll talk some more. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for participating. And there's more material if you want to look at some of the other material on the website. There's other stuff related to the scholar strike, and also to Black Lives Matter, to voting registration, and to participating in the census, and a bunch of other things on that website. So please take advantage of this time and that information for yourselves. Maybe I'll hang out for a second with Jake and Janine, but thanks everybody else for coming. It's been great.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording now too. Everybody who's watching at home, thanks for participating.
Thank you.